Hey guys, it's your girl Mel coming to you real quick. Welcome to Can We Talk Podcast. Come on in the room, y'all, because I got some goodness to share with you. Okay, so listen, I am excited about today because I don't believe we give enough energy to what I'm about to share with you guys today. And I think this is a piece to our foundational build up. Again, everything you know, like I said to you guys in the intro for Can We Talk Podcast, this channel is about all things relationship. But this is the thing. I'm learning more and more and more in my own life that in order to have successful relationships, there's some foundational things that got to be put in place. Before you can have those amazing relationships, there's some stuff that got to get set first, okay? And this is my belief. So I'm obviously just sharing my experience, my opinions, and the things that I actually know have worked for me. So here we go. The topic today is based on this quote. You are affected by the company you keep. And somebody said it, which is how I heard it today, actually this morning. And he said, who you spend your time with is who you become. And he says, and this was from a doctor being interviewed, and he said, a lot of people think that that's just a great positive quote affirmation that you want to repeat to yourself. He goes, but in the very literal sense, you really are affected by the company you keep. And he says this is why. We all have these things called mirroring neurons, where we literally start to imitate what we see. And so if you're spending time with people who are, I don't know, let's say low lives and have nothing going for themselves, well then you start to mirror that. If you're spending time with people who are great at business and, have a certain business savviness about how they think, believe it or not, you start to pick up those traits. So this is why this is going to be good. So when I heard this gentleman say this, and I will get his name and post it somewhere, I guess in the description box. Let me get used to that. Which, by the way, before I go any further, like this video, share it, subscribe to this channel. This is where you want to come to get those nuggets that really help you in life, okay? I am here to help. So please, please, please be a part of the family. Subscribe, like, share, and do all the things. Let's get back into it. So, like I said, it's about the topic, or it's about the quote, you are affected by the company you keep. When I heard this doctor speak about it, it made me think of a few different examples that I can personally speak to in my own life. And like I said, I don't want this video to be way too long, but I do want to share this because I want you guys to get it. And I want you to really, please, get a notebook and a pen out. Write this down because you're going to need to listen to this if you really want to see your life change and grow. That's just the facts, okay? So, I want to give you guys a quick life example. When I was growing up, my parents lived in a Section 8 apartment in the Bronx, right? When my mother signed up, when my parents signed up for the Section 8 apartment, at the time, my parents were 19 and 20 years old. They were newlyweds, they were young, and my mother was pregnant with my brother. And so, of course, they thought 2 bedrooms would be suffice because it was just them. But very shortly after, here I came, and then very shortly after that, here came my sister. So they got 5 people in a 2-bedroom apartment, okay, in the Bronx. Now, the environment that we grew up in, I wouldn't say was horrible. It wasn't the worst. I wouldn't say that it was the worst, but it was definitely an impoverished environment for sure. Obviously, Section 8. And with that being said, there were things that we saw, but my parents did an amazing job. And I have to say this. They did an amazing job in putting us in different environments, I would say 5 to 6 days out of the week. So we grew up in a church environment. Now, before we go any further, I am not a religious person, okay? I do believe in having a relationship with Christ, but I am not religious. We grew up in an environment that believed in applying principles to your life. Okay, so yes, we were in a church environment, but it wasn't about the screaming and the hooping and the hollering. It was about learning. It was about actually learning, actually applying, and actually making your life better. If we say we wanted to represent Christ, right? So we were exposed to a lot of different cultures, a lot of different languages, a lot of different walks of life. We were exposed to a lot of different environments. As the church continued to grow, it's actually considered one of the biggest churches in Brooklyn. I think the biggest church in Brooklyn. And of course, when we started out with them, we started out from the ground up. So literally born into it. That being said, we were a part of an environment that, especially as children, we were given examples and experiences that you wouldn't normally get living in the inner city. Okay, so when you live in an impoverished environment, a lot of times people are not talking about when they're going on their next ski trip. Like, most people are not having that conversation. When you live in an impoverished environment, most people are not talking about, hey, we're going camping this summer, we're going whitewater rafting and horseback riding, and we're going to do all that. That's not the conversation that you normally hear. And funny enough, as I think about my life right now, there's so many things that are coming full circle that I'm so thankful for that I had an experience of. So like I said, we lived in the Bronx, but then after that we moved to Brooklyn. My parents bought their first home. My father worked his tail off. My mother stayed home with us and worked her tail off, okay? And they worked together as a team so that they can buy their first home in Brooklyn, in a nicer area of Brooklyn. And then eventually we moved into Long Island and they bought another home in Long Island. So I was able to kind of see my parents go through different stages in life. And because I was able to see that, and because I was exposed to these experiences, I was able to go on ski trips every year and camping trips every year and have different experiences that, if I'm being honest, most black folk don't get. Most black people ain't saying, let's go horseback riding. Not if you're in the inner city. Let me be clear. Most people are not saying, hey, let's go whitewater rafting. Like, people, that wasn't the conversation that was going on in the neighborhood. You understand? It was, when's the next block party? Who's bringing what dish? Right? And that was great and it was fun and I was so glad that I got that experience. But because of the environment and the experience that my parents exposed me to, it kind of brings this right back to why I'm talking about this today. So like I said, the doctor says that how did he say it? Who you spend your time with is who you become. My notes are down here, y'all. That's why I'm looking. I spent my time with people who were constantly evolving, constantly growing. I spent my time around people who believed in the importance of exposure and education. And it wasn't always about necessarily a degree, although that was important. It was about understanding that when your exposure is limited, you are then limited. And I've noticed that be true in so many areas of my life. I used to be a substitute teacher in an inner city school, and I loved my students. And one of the things I used to say all the time sometimes to my students and sometimes to other teachers and even sometimes to the staff, these kids need exposure. They don't know what's outside of these four blocks. I mean, quite literally. And when I talk to people who have been older, who have gotten this, have grown up and maybe they're in college or whatever the case is, I will talk to them and I'll say, have you ever left such and such area? Oh no, I never even went over there. I've even met grown people my age who had never been outside of their own town. Which shocked me. I mean, like, shocked me. So, this brings me to the next point. Years ago, and I think I said it, but maybe I didn't because I've tried to record this and I got interrupted with a phone call because I forgot to put my phone in do not disturb. Years ago, I was given 5 outward senses that we have. Now, we all know that we have our 5 senses. Some people say we have a 6th sense, right? And we have, touch, taste, smell. Hear. What else? I can't. Right? Touch, taste, smell, hear, see. Jesus. Couldn't get that out. So we know that we have those, right? But then we have things that affect our senses outside of us. And there were 5 of them, but I can only remember 4 because I wrote down these 5 years ago in a journal that I cannot find at the moment. But I do remember 4. And it was environment, sound, imagery, language. And I want to remember that fifth one. I'm going to remember that fifth one. But just those four alone bring me to more of why I'm sharing this with you guys. The importance of imagery, people don't realize, is huge. Think about it this way. If you grew up in the hood, right, and every time you step outside your door, you see drug addicts, you see street walkers, you see drug dealers, you see you got the hustle man trying to sell you something. You see single parent homes. You see verbal abuse constantly. You see and hear it. You hear nothing but sirens constantly coming up and down the street. Okay? So that was a mixture of sight and sound, right? So imagery and sound. What I started to pay attention to was in these kind of environments, which, by the way, I had to go back to. So even though my parents took us out of the hood, raised us up, did all those things, I decided to have children. I was engaged at one point. That did not work out. I had to do it on my own. Doing it on my own now with 3 children, I had to figure it out. And in order to do that, I had to live somewhere that I could financially afford. And where is that at? The hood. Okay? So we went to the hood. Okay? And my children were being raised in an environment that I was not okay with. I was not okay with it because I started to see how this affects you. This affects how you start to think, what you even expect for yourself. Because, again, my parents did a great job at putting me in environments that caused me to want to be better. Even when they moved us to Long Island and I went to a high school that was predominantly white, I want to say it was about 5 of us that was up in there that looked brown. Okay, about 5. And there was some mixed folk up in there, but that might have been 3 or 4. So, and my high school was pretty big. I want to say we had about 1,000 students. So just think about that, okay? Or at least 800 students. It was about something like that. So just imagine culture shock coming from Brooklyn, okay? Because that's when we moved to Long Island. Coming from Brooklyn, being surrounded by Hispanics and Blacks, listening to the Spanish music coming up the street, which I actually love, and to this day I still kind of miss. You know, the smells of people cooking and like all of these things, your senses go into action, and you start to pick up on all these things. We moved to Long Island, now we're in the suburbs, all you smell is fresh grass and all you hear is crickets, right? So me, my brother, and my sister, culture shock. Even though we were exposed to a lot of different things in our church upbringing, we didn't live in that kind of environment. Either way, fast forward, coming up in an environment like that, now, like I said, I'm surrounded by predominantly white children. I'm surrounded by a different culture, different language, different way of thinking. Education was high on the totem pole than it was in the inner city. Exposure, extracurricular activities, sports, that was high on the totem pole, and high expectation of you to achieve these things, right? When you live in the inner city, yeah, some of that's kind of there, but sports are there in a way of like, do this so you can get out, right? It's more like encouraged and pushed on children in the inner city, do this so you can get out. In the suburban area, it's more like, do this so you can gain exposure and possibly play in the Olympics. You understand what I'm saying? Like, the conversation is very different, and even the approach is very different. So I realize that this video is going to be a long video, so we're only going to talk about imagery in this video, and this is going to be a part 2, possibly a part 3, because I don't want this video to be too long. But bottom line is, imagery plays a huge part in how you desire certain things, how you expect things to happen in your life. What you see constantly is what you will start to imitate. Naturally, because we have those mirroring neurons in us, we will start to imitate what we see. So if we're constantly seeing poverty, then guess what you're going to imitate by default? Poverty. If you're constantly seeing, oh, and let me tell you how this is so real, because I used to be a substitute teacher. So when I was dealing with my young girls, some of the conversations that I would have with them, I'm like, wait, why is this even a thought at this age? But I understand why. When you see women, you either see the very churchy woman who's extremely judgmental, extremely rigid, and telling you that you ain't good enough. And let's keep it 100. Some of y'all know what I'm talking about. Or you see the young fast tail woman who about 21, 22 years old, talking about, I'm gonna get these men for everything they got. Okay? Y'all know what I'm talking about. Or you see streetwalker or stripper. That's what you see. So when that's all you see as a young lady growing up in that kind of environment, what do you expect? Even the child's mother, let's think about it this way. The parent is supposed to be the living example, right? But that mother, not all, obviously I'm not saying all, but in most cases, you see a very hardworking single mom working 2 jobs, 3 jobs, doing her absolute best, but she's stressed. She's probably angry. She might even be a little bit bitter and resentful. And guess who she takes that out on? Her children. Right? So, because of that, this is what this child is seeing, experiencing, day in, day out, 24/7. So why imagery is so important? One of the things that I love to do with my children on a regular basis, we will get in the car and drive somewhere. Now, we're no longer in the hood, thank you, Jesus. Hallelujah. Okay, we ain't in the hood no more. But even my oldest said to me, she was like, I kind of miss the sounds. But that's because she was so used to it. Mind you, she's the oldest. So she grew up in it a little bit longer than my 2 youngest, okay? So she misses the sound. She misses some of the experience. We gonna break that, okay? Because we ain't going back. Okay, so that's gonna come all the way down. I'm gonna shut that all the way down because I want to give her a new way of thinking and a new expectation of what life can be. So I say all of this to say imagery is extremely important because literally, quite literally, we literally become what we see. We become what we spend our time around. If 24/6 we around hood foolishness, on 24/7, on the 7th day, you do something different, it ain't gonna make that much of a difference. But if you 6 out of the 7 days a week, if you're in an environment that's loving, that's supportive, that's again evolving, growing, challenging you to think better or different, causing you to desire things that you might not never thought to even desire. And this again, this I'm gonna say this one last point because this video is not gonna be more than 20 minutes, okay? That piece that I just said, this also ties in to dating and marriage. Think about this, y'all. If all you see is broken relationships, abusive relationships, relationships with people who are constantly arguing and fighting with each other all the time, if that's all you see, and then you have social media and other places telling you, you gotta fight for what you want. You gotta fight. In your mind, you don't even think that it's possible to have a loving, healthy relationship without all that fighting. You don't even think it's possible. And I'll give you one example. When I first actually started dating, again, my parents were loving. I loved them dearly. They were amazing parents, but no parents are perfect. And we all know that. Okay, my parents argued a ton, but that's also because my parents had to grow up together. So there was a lot of things they had to learn together that they didn't know. And one of the things that you notice, one of the things you learn as a child, you know, I am still my parents' child. One of the things you start to learn is that your parents aren't perfect. And I didn't know that then though. When I first started dating at 18 years old, I met a guy, liked him, fell in love. We was dating for 2.5, almost 3 years. And when I tell you, I used to argue with him. Mind you, he didn't come from that household. Okay? I met him in Long Island. So he came from a different household. They didn't argue. They didn't do that. So he meets me and I'm screaming and arguing. And I even said to him, you must not love me. You must not love me because you're not even arguing with me. Do you understand how broken that thought is? But most people don't. Most people don't because they don't know any different. They're not exposed to anything else. So in their minds, there's no possible way that you can actually be in a healthy, loving, supportive relationship with someone you actually like and not argue till you are red in your face. Most people don't believe that's possible, but it is. So, like I said, this video is already 20 minutes at this point. I want to let you guys know I love you. I hope that you get something from this video. There will be a part 2 and a 3 of what I'm talking about, because this, take your notebooks and your pens out, okay? Take notes, listen, jot down the nuggets. This is key foundational tools that you need in order to start seeing how you can actually achieve the goals, the relationships that you actually desire in life. All right? I love you guys. Thank you for letting me share this with you guys. Share the video, like the video, comment below if you have any opinions, thoughts, suggestions. I would greatly appreciate it. And I just thank you so much for supporting Can We Talk Podcast. I will talk to y'all soon. I love you. Bye.